Hey everyone, welcome to your show. I gotta admit, these expert series we do Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday are so much fun to do, and we're gonna start it off strong, always with Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. So it's interesting. Last week we did a little bit of talk about how multifamily lending is changing, evolving, right? More down, 18 months reserve, all of those things. And lo and behold, last Friday, JP Morgan Chase came out and said, "Hey, starting Tuesday, we're gonna get really tight on our lending for single family homes or residential loans." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" Right? Banks can't come out and say they don't want to make loans, so instead, what they do is they just tighten up. So, I was curious what you thought of that. Did that surprise you? What do you think's really going on? Let's spat that around because I think that's going to have an impact, no doubt.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I received an email from a friend of mine who's a lender and talking about like even jumbo loans. A lot of banks aren't doing jumbo loans right now,
Yeah.
especially in investment properties and things like that. So, the banks are under pressure because, the whole forbearance thing, the whole just the economy as a whole, people are going to be defaulting on mortgages. There are going to be some people that are not going to be able to keep their houses. So, there's a lot of distress coming in the mortgage market. Now, the good news is the Fed has stepped up and they're, buying an unlimited amount of mortgage bonds, and mortgage backed securities. So, when a lot of people had this conversation earlier, they're like, man, aren't we going to see hyperinflation by what the Fed's doing? And I said, what the Fed's doing, they're actually loaning money. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. When they come in and buy these bonds, when they buy treasuries, when they do these things, they're basically providing liquidity to the banks and to the capital markets to in turn loan money. Other than that, they are literally, providing working capital to big companies like the Boeings and the airlines and the cruise industry, hotel industry, stuff like that. Those are credit lines. So they're not actually, it's not like, Michael, you're going to get a check for $1 million in your pocket, or I'm going to get a check for $1 million in our pocket. That would create hyperinflation, right?
Yeah.
That's not what's happening. They're just providing liquidity. They're providing lending. Now, some of that stuff does come with, strings attached, just like a loan modification comes with strings attached, with your mortgage. So it's to be expected. Banks are going to tighten up criteria. They have investors that they have to answer to.
Mhm.
They have, their regulations, federal regulators that they have to answer to, and guidelines that they have to adhere to. So it is going to be difficult in the interim, and nobody knows what's really going to happen, right? We don't know. Can we get rid of this thing? When are we going to be able to get rid of this thing? What's the
Mhm.
economy going to look like when it does open up? When can we open up? So there is still so much uncertainty out there. The banks have to protect themselves. They have to hedge, their investments that they're making in people when they loan you money. So yes, they're going to make the requirements stiffer and more stringent, and it may only get worse in the short term before it changes, just like it did 2009. Nobody
Mhm.
could borrow money
Yeah.
post 2009. It was very difficult, very expensive, and then what happened? Last 3 or 4 years, we saw it almost go back to like it was before, all the way
Almost.
back to no doc loans.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, let's stay in the current a little bit because not
Mm-hmm.
many people have invested through the last crash like you and I did. And again, the access to mortgage loans, whether it's large multifamilies or it's residential, it will absolutely have impact on transactions, and
Mm-hmm.
then not only transactions, but that will ultimately lead to price declines. Right? This is a supply demand problem. And when you rip away people's ability to say yes, because there could be lots of demand, but if they can't get a yes answer from a bank, they're not considered, part of the solution. So we're going to see a bunch of transactions fall. And, the big question is, I guess the big question for me is, do you think other banks follow Chase's example and we see, Wells Fargo and Bank of America sort of follow suit this week by tightening up regulations? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see a lot of
Yeah.
banks do that. We saw it with Freddie and Fannie,
Yeah.
in the multifamily side. So yeah, I think it's the theme du jour moving forward here in the short term. And it's still there. They're still lending. It's just going to be more difficult. And investment property lending might dry up for a lot of people altogether.
Yeah.
That's going to be even more difficult. There's not going to be any relief in that market if you're in distress. The short-term vacation rental mortgage will be interesting, to see how that unfolds. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting discussion. On the multifamily side, the more sophisticated owners, they're just not selling, right? They're,
Right.
they're not going to discount prices. They're going to wait. They're going to pull back and they're say, you know what? I don't need to sell right now. I'm not going to sell a discount.
Hmm.
The only ones that are going to sell right now are the ones that have to. So it will be interesting to see, what that looks like and how things develop here over the next couple of months.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. It's the have to sell. In multifamily, it's just a smaller pool, so there'll probably be less have to sells. Plus, you also have extend and pretend, right? An apartment loan is bigger in most cases than residential loans. So again, it could become very common to extend and pretend, which was something we saw a lot of in 2008 and 9 and 10.
Yeah.
But I think residential, we're going to have a bunch of motivated sellers that have to sell, right? Job loss, divorce, health
Hmm.
events, people passing away and living it to their heirs.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot, and it's not yet rippled through, right? Because we've really only been in this for like 2 or 3 weeks. I think in another
Hmm.
3 or 4 weeks, anything that's left in the MLS is a have to sell. I mean, why else would you list
Yeah.
today? I mean, is that a fair assumption, you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it. If you're in the MLS, you need to sell right now. And, of course, every market's different. Every market has
Yeah.
its own little things. But in general, yeah, if somebody has to sell, they're going to put it on the market. And, like you said, the probate thing, I mean, there's been a lot of unfortunate deaths, and it's the elderly population. So there's going to be a lot of, estate properties and probate properties flooding the market.
Hmm.
Usually that's a normal supply. So we're going to see an oversupply there.
Hmm.
In that sector, there's a lot of people that focus on that niche. A lot of properties I've bought have been estate properties,
Yeah.
vacant, run down.
Yeah.
Those are great deals, right? The
Yeah.
family just wants to get rid of it. It's found money to a lot of them. But with everything being shut down, it's going to take a while to work through those.
Sure.
You can't even start the probate process now. So, yeah, it's crazy times. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
So I
Overall,
think I think very shortly, let's just put 30 days on this. We're going to have much less active listings, but the ones that are there are in distress or have to sell. And then they're going to be doing that in a market where lending has dried up for the most part, right? Lending will
yeah,
be there, but it will be there for the clean properties. And again, we're not going to have very many clean properties unless you're buying something from the builder, which again is an interesting conversation. But what is
yeah,
left is distress, no loans, you can slash prices. And then where are the buyers, right? There's a few deep pocket cash buyers out there that really have cash. A lot of the fake cash buyers who were relying on these funky loans that are now gone are out. So really that comes down to, cash buyers or your ability to raise private money, right?
hmm,
Which is something I know I sent out yesterday. But again, if you have a track record, you've been doing the right things, the ability to raise private money probably for the next 6, maybe for the next 12 months is going to be key, I think.
yeah. Yeah, and it's a good time to do it. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of debate out there. People saying, "Oh, it's really hard right now. It's really good right now." I think it just depends on, who you are, where you are, what your network is. And
Mhm.
here's the biggest thing I'll tell everybody. And you did a presentation yesterday. It was awesome. What a lot of people don't do, especially investors, they system a motivated seller system to find private money. Right? Private money is a system just like anything else. You need to have a funnel. You need to have a relationship building model, a way to constantly stay in touch and let people know what you're doing. I love the fact that you talked about you just documented on a blog what you were doing. Back before that was even a thing,
Yeah.
I just did what I did.
Yeah.
Same thing. And people, I shared what I did. People were interested in what I was doing,
Yeah.
and they're like, man, that's cool. I'd love to do a deal with you. I mean, that's what they'd say. And
Yeah.
even today, even still, they're like, man, that's so much fun. Let me know when you have an opportunity. I'd love to do a deal with you.
Yeah.
So, it's being out there, letting people know what you do. You don't want to, hey, I got this great deal. You want to invest? You don't
Yeah.
want to do that. You just want to talk about what you do. So it's a complete system from the way you're packaged to the way that you present yourself and your opportunities, the way you share. Now you can't network right now in a traditional sense. I don't
Yeah.
know when you will be able to again. So you've got to get your system up and running online, starting with a website, a pitch deck on yourself and your company. If you've got a website, that'll suffice. And then you got to start creating content of some sort,
Hmm.
sharing and talking about what you do, whatever medium you're comfortable with, whether it's blog on your website, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever it is. You got to send those visuals out, let people know what it is you're doing. Podcast, something like that, so that people start to see what you're doing and then reach out to you and, start talking to you about it.
Yeah, and again, it's a couple of two things that were important about that presentation yesterday. One is I've never asked for money. I've never asked for a private investor. I've never had to ask. And the other thing
Hmm.
is you have to be willing to be consistent. Too many people look at this and go, "Hey, I put out 3 videos in the last week and I haven't got anything." Well, let's just have a reality check. I wrote a blog. It no longer exists. I wish I kept it, but I didn't. It was wealthbuildingpro.com, where I was documenting all the houses I was buying at land value. We're talking 40 grand was my average purchase in 2010 in California. And they were renting for 1,000 to 1,100. So, I mean, they were like 2.5x in California. So I was just writing them all down, and I would write down how we bought it. I would take pictures because, again, video wasn't there. I wasn't using Facebook. It was just wealthbuildingpro.com, a list of
Yeah.
properties. And then I write where I bought them. And then 3 weeks later, I'd write what we rented them for. And I did that for 6 months before I had anybody in my network reach out and say, "Hey, let's go to lunch." But
Yeah.
once the first person did, my lunch request, let's go to dinner. Let's go to Fresno and check it out. Because again, my network, for the most part, at least in 2010, was in the Bay Area, right? So we'd have a 2.5 hour. First off, we'd meet, we'd figure it out, we'd catch up, because I knew most of these people for 5 to 10 years. Then over a weekend, we'd drive down to Fresno and check stuff out, kick rocks, I called it. And then I'd have a private investor. I mean, I raised millions of dollars at 10, and I paid 10% interest back then, right? I did
Hmm.
what people wanted because I wanted more deals at land value. Right. But it's a 6-month thing. You got to be consistent. You got to be just sharing your knowledge, take pictures, take video, um, and just
Yeah.
be a giver. Don't be, "Hey, I got a deal. I got a deal. Hey, loan me some money. Loan me some money. Hey, let's partner. Let's partner." Right. That's not a good way to go.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some people that is their business model. They are
Yeah.
lenders, private lenders.
Yeah.
So with them, yeah, it is all about the deal. They're going to look at you as an operator, then they're going to look at the deal. So let's start there. Number one, everybody says, "Oh, go find a deal and you'll have all the money you need." No, you need a buyer's list and you
Mhm.
need a lender's list. So you've got to have one of those two things or both before you go hunting for deals, because you can go find the best deal in the world, but if you've got no network of buyers or potential partners or lenders, you've got nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
So you want to start there first. Find your cash buyers, potential partners, find your lenders. Where do you find them? How do you find them? Especially now, you're going to have to go online now, since you can't go to these networking meetings. You can't go down to the courthouse if they're not open, but you need to research who's buying properties with cash. So those are people that go to auctions. Those are people that you can look at public records. If it's online, you can look at the transactions, find out who's buying. A lot of places make real estate transactions public.
Mhm.
And you can see over and over if it's an entity, are they buying, how are they paying, that kind of stuff. So you can look those things up. You can go into real estate investor groups and meetups and just talk, see who's lending and who the cash buyers are, and start talking to people. But
Mhm.
you got to be an expert. You need to know your market, know your business, know your craft, and all of that, and be credible before you do any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And and that's the way it was with me. So I never asked anybody either. I was just very active, very
Yep.
social, coaching kids sports, on the boards of all the nonprofits, active in church. So I'm a social guy. I attend a lot of things. I was in the Home Builder Association,
Mm.
leading that as the vice president and chairman of the Remodeling Council early in my career when I was a builder. So I was out there, and people would be talking about, what do you do? "Oh yeah, man, I'm building spec houses here, doing development over there, tearing down a hotel, redeveloping, flipping this." You're like, "Wow, I'd love to get involved. Let me know if you have a deal, man."
Mhm.
I mean, it's just like that. People see what you're doing, and you're confident. Now, how do you get there if you're just starting out? Because somebody could be watching this going, "Oh, that's great, guys. Y'all been doing this 20 years. I'm trying to get started. How does that work?" Okay, again, build your network, find
Yep.
your cash buyers, find your investors, find your lenders, learn your market. Michael says that over and over and over. Learn your market, learn your craft, know what the values are, know what
Yeah.
the costs are. Talk to realtors, contractors, other investors, learn from them so that you know what you're doing. Then, once you have that network built, go out and find a good deal, and then come along some side of somebody, even if you have to give up 90% of the deal. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do to get started, get it going. I did when I first started out. I had somebody came along with me, a developer, taught me the business, took complete advantage of me. But I somebody into the deal with you, even if you got to give up a lion's share.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's all about learning your market. I mean, if I'm sitting here watching this and I have an interest in real estate, or I want to take advantage of this, I have no track record or experience. You gotta learn your market better than anybody else,
Mhm.
and you do that by being focused. Um, that's what I tell my students all the time, right? You don't have to know everything. You need to be, again, I'll use residential, right? You need to know 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage houses between 12 and 1,500 square feet in this zip code better than anybody else. So that when you find a deal, you can talk about it intelligently. Why is it a deal? Well, it's a deal because it's priced $10 per square foot smaller than, oh, by the way, it has this, it has that, the roof is new windows, blah, blah, blah. You have to be able to make people with money feel comfortable with you. And again, it's not
Right.
about asking for money. Hey, I got a deal. You want to invest? No, it's, hey, I found this property on 123 Main Street. It's better than 17 other properties in the every neighborhood, and blah 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 blah. That's how this works,
Yeah.
at least in my experience.
Yeah, and know exactly what you're going to do to it, what's popular, because investors are going to ask you those questions. Now, generally, first and foremost, they want to know, how is my money secure? How am I
Hmm.
not going to lose my money?
Hmm.
That's number one. So you got to have that answer, and you need to
Yep.
have an attorney lined up
Yep.
that they can speak with, that they know they're going to get no deed of trust guarantees, that type of things in terms of personal guarantees.
Yep.
And then it's going to be, what's my rate of return? So those are the first couple of things they're going to look at. So you need to have that. And then they're going to say, well, what are you going to do? And, you need to be able to answer questions. Well, what kind of paint are you going to use? I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, you need
Yeah.
to know all the way down to, maybe not the brand, but what color. Oh,
Yep.
this is the color that's trending right now in our area. So I'm going to use this, off-white grayish kind of hint, whatever it is. Here's
Yeah.
what's working on the outside of the house. Here's what's working on the inside. Here's the floor plan. Here's the fixtures and finishes. I know this because I've studied,
Yep.
new developments and what's hot and what's selling and what price point, and all those types of things. It's going to take me 30 days. I'm going to spend 20 grand, and here's my contractor, and he's done
Exactly.
500 of these.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing that people, when you know your craft, when I say educate yourself, and Michael says educate yourself, and we say know your market, how many are on the, you should be able to tell me at any time without thinking, how
Yep.
many houses are on the market? How long have they been on the market? How many are under contract? How long were they on the market? How many have sold? How long were they on the market? What they sell? List price to sale price. What's that ratio?
Hmm.
How many deals are falling out that were under contract? How many are getting
Exactly.
withdrawn? You know, all of those types of things. When you know that intimately at any drop of a hat without having to look at anything, you know your market. And that's by just looking at it every day. It's
Every
not
day.
hard. It's not complicated. Get a core group of realtors that you talk to that are active,
Yep.
and talk to them, call them, talk to them about the market. I know what's going on, what's hot, what are the sweet spots, what's trending, what are buyers doing, what are the builders doing, and that's what I do still to this day. I talk to
Yeah.
realtors all over the country in different markets, commercial and residential, so I know what's going on out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, just to carry it through, because people need to see that we're still doing this. So,
Mm-hmm.
I put out that video yesterday about raising private money. But why did I do that? Well, earlier in the week, I said, okay, guys, I'm going to get aggressive again. I don't think we're yet to 2010 levels where motivated sellers are everywhere, but I'm going to start planting flagpoles right now. So I wrote 11 offers out of the MLS, uh, like within a 3-day window. 8 of them with agents that I know, and then 3 directly with the listing agents. And I didn't expect to get any of them, but I wrote the offers, right? And just to give you a feel, right? If it was listed at 150, I offered it 100, right? If it was at 120, I offered 85, because I wanted people to know that this is where I will deploy my capital. And oh, by the way, if you want a proof of funds, fine, I'll send you a screenshot. But let's go, right? And we got 2 counters now, and lots of FUs, but that's what I expected, right? We're
Yeah,
3 weeks into this. But
yeah.
if any of those 12 or 11 are available in 30 days, my offer is going to look a lot better.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. And that's the way it works. People always come back. I mean, I bought deals, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years down the
yeah,
road from when I'd made an offer before. So, you do it polite, you do it respectfully. Hey,
yeah,
I'm an investor. Here's where I need to be.
yep,
It's either a yes or a no. You got nothing to lose. Some people get emotional, and, especially realtors, they'll get all bent out of shape about lowball offers. But, others understand the game, and, the sophisticated realtors will tell you, hey, bring an offer. You never know what a seller is going to do until it's in front of them.
hmm,
MLS strategy. There's a specific strategy in the MLS that I use, that I look for vacant properties that have been on the market for longer than average days,
yep,
have had a price reduction, and I go in just like you, and I make an offer where I need to be,
yeah.
regardless of where that is based on what they're asking. I don't care what they're
Doesn't
asking.
matter. Yeah,
Right. And I don't care if it's 50%, 75%, I make it where I know it needs to be.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't cost you anything. You can even do them verbally, and just say, hey, here's where I'm a buyer at. You just call agents. So it can just be verbal.
Hmm.
But you got to be ready to back it up when they say yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not bound by anything, but,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that you're ready to back it up. But, if you're not making offers, you're not getting any deals. So you got to be making offers. You got to be looking for those signs. A lot of times properties that are on the market get withdrawn. You can track that through, what is it, RedX and,
Hmm.
Zillow, and you can look for properties that are expired and withdrawn and call them up that were for sale for a long time. Call the owner and make an offer, or call
Yeah.
the realtor and say, hey, notice your listing expired, tell the owner I'll give them X,
Yeah.
before you relist. So there's a lot of ways you can do that without spending any money.
Yeah, this is the time. Again, this is a process, folks. What you hopefully hear from Greg and I here is we're getting aggressive. We're starting to get excited. The lending environment is one of the reasons I'm getting excited, because that tighter lending environment, like we talked about Fannie Freddie last week, we talked about Chase this week, and likely others, are just going to remove demand from the equation, which is exactly what I mean. 2010 was the most impactful year on my net worth of any year I've ever had. And it was because nobody was buying. Nobody could get a yes answer from a bank. I see it coming again. It may not be that bad. I certainly hope it's not that bad, but if it is, I'm going to be ready. And the answer is private money. The answer is just private money. So,
Yeah.
uh,
So get that system in place, get it ready. And here's an interesting point. I had a discussion this morning with somebody who's in Korea,
okay.
and we were talking. He's an investor, and he's stationed over there. And he was asking me, he said, everybody's saying, Michael, everybody's saying this is going to be the best buying opportunity. Prices are going to come down. He said, well, if everybody knows that, isn't everybody going to be buying, which is going to drive prices up? And my answer was, no, not everybody's going to be buying. He said, why not? I said, well, you got to understand, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to work through their reserves right now that are in the commercial and residential world.
Yeah.
And their coffers are draining. They're not going to have cash, and they're not going to be in a position necessarily to buy. So there's going to be a lot of buyers that are going to get weeded out, even though there's opportunities out there for the sellers that have to sell and can't do creative financing and things like that. So just because the market's good, just because it's going to create an opportunity, and just because everybody knows it, doesn't mean everybody's going to be able to take advantage of it, like you said before. So, don't be fooled and sidelined by the limiting belief that, well, if it's such a great deal and everybody knows about it, there's not going to be any deals, therefore I'm not even going to try. That's a limiting belief. Just go, make offers.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, again, I've invested through this cycle before. This one is probably steeper and more severe, and probably shorter. At least I hope it's shorter. But I remember there were lots of buyers in 08 and 09 when prices kind of rolled over. They're like, oh, cool, I can get a 10% discount or 15% discount. They blew their wad. They were done. They were out of the market, and they saw their, oh my God, I bought early, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people that are already writing offers today, and they're getting a 5% discount or an 8% discount. I'm like, geez, what do you do? I mean, a little early, don't you think? So again,
like last week in the stock market, man, they're all like, dang it.
Yeah, exactly. The guys are not paying attention. I mean, prices are sticky on the way down. Just because you can get a 5% discount, that's nothing in real estate. I mean, that's not even selling costs on the other side. So
yeah.
Let's be a little bit more strategic. I guess any other kind of words of wisdom or thought around the lending market from banks and then private money as we kind of wrap up this show?
Yeah, banks are going to be tough, and it's going to be changing week to week. So, and it can change midstream. So that's the other thing you got to be aware of. You could be under contract in process, and until your loan is approved and moved to closing, clear to close, anything can and will happen. So be prepared, have it in your contract, make sure that you can get out of it, get your money back. If the bank, put that loan contingency, put that force majeure, COVID-19 contingency in there. So if anything changes, along the process, you can get your money back out of the deal, retrade, whatever it takes. But, you got to watch it daily, weekly, and be in tune with it. It's, who knows what this is going to do.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Well, given that we've done 2 Thursdays in a row after the new unemployment claims, what's your prediction this week? So it went from 6.9 to 6.6. Where are you this week?
Yeah, this week I think it'll come in the 5s.
Yeah, I'm going to guess in the 4s. So let's see how
you
we
think
do.
So? Yeah, I think we'll see 5s. I think it would have been closer to 10 last week if everybody could have gotten through. The problem was people still can't get through. So
Yeah.
it's kind of keeping the numbers down a little bit.
Yeah. Which
I
is
think, I
crazy
think
to
if we
think.
come in around 5.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's communicate on Thursday, brother. Take care of yourself.
Yep,
All right.
sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, Michael, take
Bye.
care.